I'm going to start real quick with a thank you song. Tankashela Pela Maya Pela Maya Pela Maya Elohe. We chose Aniwa Maya Kujo Pela Maya Elohe. Tankashela Pela Maya Pela Maya Pela Maya Elohe. We chose Anewa Maya Kujo Pela Maya Elohe. Oh, Pela Maya Tokashila. I had a talk lined up, but I think I'm going to scratch that talk, and I'm going to just go straight from the Spirit, the way I usually talk and operate from. An elder of our people named Heaka Sapa, Blackout, talked about the sacred hoop of the nation that was fragmented, that was broken. And in this sacred hoop, there are 4 colors. There's red, yellow, black, and white, representing the 4 colors of man that walk the earth. The indigenous people are red, the Asian are the yellow, the African are the black, and the European are the white. Now in this sacred hoop, we have 4 directions: the east, the south, the west, and the north, which is spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental. Each one of these colors and people hold an attribute. The indigenous people are spiritual. That's generally their attribute. The yellow man is into the yin and yang, the energy and motion, emotion. The black man, they're physical, they're athletes. And the white men are analytical. Now, when we use the sacred medicine wheel, we bring those 4 attributes to our core and center. And with that, we begin to understand how things move in our lives with balance. Because life is about balance. This whole shift that's coming is about balance. It's about, to me, people that are preparing to move on through another millennium, another time. I truly believe that the spirit world will be talking to some of the people, well, a lot of the people, to help with this shift. But we have to look at ourselves within this sacred hoop. Now they talked about the sacred hoop of the nation being fragmented. We also look at the sacred soul that is fragmented. A lot of times in our lives, we go through trials and tribulations that basically separate us from truth and light. And that's on a soul level. They say, as Tokashila Wakantanka Ia Io gave man the breath of life, he became a living soul. Now, when you take a vibration, sound, and air, the living soul, when that rolls off your tongue, it moves into the atmosphere. If we expel something negative, we're giving away our soul. When we tell a lie, we're giving away our soul. Because the dark energy takes it and moves with it. So if we look at vibration and we look at the breath of life, which is Wakan, which is sacred, we always have to be prepared to make all things right by apology, forgiveness. When I go back to my people, we have every right to hate the government, to hate the Pakihal Wasichu for coming in. But I tell my people, don't hate. Because when we hate and we despise, we give away our soul. So what happens is the dark side takes that and runs with it. We believe that the body has 4 chambers. The sex gland, that's the root level. Second chamber is the stomach, third chamber is the heart, fourth chamber is the mind. When separation comes at the first chamber, it comes through a cell intelligence. It comes through procreation. If you take soil and a seed and you plant it, a seed knows what type of tree it is. If it's an apple seed, it's an apple tree. If it's an acorn, it's an oak tree. When we come from two parents, the mother is the soil and the father is the seed. Things travel through that sperm cell, through that cell intelligence that goes back generations. So we have to choose our soil and choose our seed and then begin to nurture the tree. Cut and prune so the tree grows straight forward and bears fruit. When we go back, we have trauma that sits behind us from the struggles that our people went through so that we may have what we have today. Now we have to go back and heal on a cell level. We have to go back through the umbilical cord, through the pito, to go back into the womb of our mother even. And that's where we use the inipi, the sweat lodge, to go in. It's constructed of 12 poles that represent the ribs of our mother. It has a fire pit and it has a cradle where we take the stones into the cradle, connecting the mind with the heart. A lot of us sometimes will run on the mind, on science, instead of going to senses. The ones that are going to make it in the shift are the ones that are moving on senses. The ones that are moving on science are going to stay way back there because they're going to look for a sign and they're going to look for proof. When indigenous people don't need a sign because the sign is right here. It's within us. It's in our intelligence. It's in our DNA. When we needed rain, we went out and danced for rain, and we were a covenant people at the time. We were a covenant people with Tokashi Laia, Io, and everything that we asked for, we got. It's when we become disobedient to his law in the way he wants it, and we try to claim energy, and we go and steal and rob, because that's what keeps us going. So if we go within ourselves and we start to evaluate what the heart is all about, in our culture, the spirit resides in the heart. The soul encompasses the heart because the soul is the breath of life. But the heart can't live without oxygen. One works with the other, and the mind as well. But this is where light comes from, but truth resides here. So we have to be prepared to take the journey from the mind to the heart and begin to follow our senses, because there's a lot of children that are born with very special talents, and the mothers and the life givers have been given a stewardship over these little ones that will be communing with those, because the veil is going to be real thin. In our culture, we go through 4 separations before we take the breath of life. One is leaving the presence of the Creator. The other one is being next to our mother's heartbeat, her rhythm. The other one is the water bag. And the other connection is the umbilical cord. So as we leave the spirit world and we're in the womb and we begin to come out, we start moving from the heartbeat and the rhythm. and then the water bag breaks, and we come out of the water world, and then the pito is cut, and there's separation. So we come out in this survival mode, or wanting to get back to be close to the rhythm. But mothers sometimes today give their children to other people to raise, or they give their children to a doctor because the doctor says, oh, he's sick, or she's sick. And so the child isn't bundled up and put back on the heart to connect with that heartbeat again. So they go into survival mode. And then they learn the law of manipulation. They cry for what they want. And as they get older, we begin to cry for what we want. Honey, I want the new car. Honey, I want the new house, and I want to cry for it. I mean, and it's just the way it works. But when we go out and we start looking within ourselves, there really isn't nothing we really need but air, the breath. A person can go without eating for 40 days and rely more on the spirit. You'll be surprised how you go from here and you ascend to here. Because we got the 12 rites of passage to take us to Iya, but we have to be grounded. We have to connect with the earth. And the earth pulsates between 18 and 20 hertz. We pulsate at about 8, 9. So we're completely separate from our mother. And then we walk with a soul between us and Mother Earth sometimes. Or the Kundalini doesn't sit on the earth enough. But when we go into the lodge, the Kundalini sits on the earth, and the energy from the earth comes up the spine, over the head, into the frontal lobe. And that's when things start opening up. So we have to look at what we could do to connect on that level and to get things working like they used to be when our ancestors once moved on the earth. So back to reclaiming and back to looking at what transpires in those 4 levels in the body. We go into separation, the sex gland, fear, courage, valor, strength, connection to our family is in the 1st chamber. When separation comes forth there, it moves to the 2nd chamber where energy starts getting stagnant. This is where contracts reside. If somebody says, hey, I think you're no good, and you sign that contract, that energy is going to reside here, and then it's going to start moving here until it invades the crown. So what we have to do is look at old contracts and belief systems and tear them up if they're not walk on, and rewrite our contracts. And there's a process to that. It's called peeling the onion, and start going back inside to see where you signed the contract and where your soul was broken. So once it starts residing here, when we eat food, the food goes into the stomach breaks it down, gets rid of waste, distributes, and everything else. When energy gets stuck there, it just starts moving upward. And then it goes into the heart and lungs. When somebody sighs, they're dying. When somebody's breathing that breath of life and really feeling it, they're living. What happens when the energy starts contaminating the heart, and then the tongue is connected to the heart, what happens is you start speaking falsehood. You see? And it comes with air, because that's the 3rd chamber. Lungs, air, truth, knowledge comes through the throat and out of the mouth. So you can actually know somebody by just the words that come off their mouth, where the heart is at. So once it goes from there, it starts moving into the crown, where chaos starts to reside. And all these other things. And then you become very dark. And then you become a recluse and you begin to die rather than live. So I think it's time. It's time for us to evaluate where we're at in that sacred hoop and look at the East and say, well, where am I spiritually? Do I have the faith to move a mountain? Where am I at emotionally? Did my mom reject me in the womb and I came out with rejection? Did my dad reject me? Did I even know my dad? I come from an alcoholic family. I know what dysfunction is. My whole life was about dysfunction. I never even thought I was worthy of love. But today, love encompasses my soul. because that's all I move on. There's no other way. And if we look back at those that wronged us, things aren't done to us, they're done for us. They're there to teach us what true forgiveness is all about. To really sit back and forgive and love. Because when we forgive, we reclaim. Because if somebody came and took part of your sacred hoop, your soul, they own you. So when you see them walking down the street and you look at them, or they can't look at you, there's a break there. And they have a license to come in and invade your space, because the thought will ignite the action, and then we begin to hate. So they call us again. Even if the wrong was 10 years ago, they still have a license to invade. But until we go back and say, I want that piece you took from me, because I want to reclaim my soul, I empower myself again. And if the other individual wants to go on their way, then maybe you own their soul. And maybe they'll serve you in the spirit world when it comes down to it, eh? But it's best to make all things right. Because what we create here is what we take there. I had an uncle who left this earth as a heroin addict. He came to me in the spirit and said, I've been on the other side for 20 years without a body. Without a body, I couldn't fulfill my addiction. So he was in the spirit world without a body to pick up a syringe and put heroin in it. And that was part of his torment. And until we went into ceremony to free that soul so it moved to higher planes, he was stuck there for 20 years with a craving. So that's why they say today is the day to prepare to meet Tokashila, Iyo. Because what you create here is what you take there. So if you live a life of joy here, then you will transition into a life of joy there. If you live a life of a tyrant, a dope fiend, an alcoholic, whatever the case may be, you will go to a place because you've created it here. Because we are created in Ia's image and likeness. So we can create worlds without number. So every day we get up and the sun comes up, we're creating a world. Because that's our world. What we create for that day is our world. So if we wake up with despair, fear, shame, guilt, and that's in our space, and that's the world that we're creating. So if we die in that state, then we move on to the other side with what we've created that day. So that's why we have to sit and put ourselves in spiritual check constantly. How much time we got, eh? 5 minutes, man, it went fast, eh? So, it'd be nice to sit here and talk all day long, eh? But, so, back into the womb, we take the inipi and we crawl back into the womb and we go clockwise and we sit around the heart. That's where the stones go in the middle. The fire that heats them is the head, and the pathway is the neck that takes us back into this womb-like world. So when we go into the womb, if we can get scientific a little bit, we can go into clearing on a cell level. Because as we're in that lodge, we begin to sweat and purify the body through every cell and pore. You see? It's no different from the Christ theory, where Jesus bled from every pore. The same concept. When we go in there, it's the same deal. And when we start to pray, we're sitting on the earth, and that pulsation from our mother is coming up the spine and into the frontal lobe. And what we pray about in that lodge comes together, moves, and exits the lodge in the steam and everything else and goes into the spirit world. That's why in our culture we use the sacred shanumpa, the sacred pipe. The straight and narrow road, the pipe stone is red. You mix the 4 colors, white, yellow, black, and red, it makes the color of the pipe stone. Those are the 4 colors coming together, the 4 colors of man coming together. So when we pray, we use smoke because we can actually visually see it go into the atmosphere. And the spirit world and the spirit realm picks that up and executes the prayer. That's why vibration, the breath of life, all that is crucial in our walk. They talk about the atonement in the Christian world. To me, the atonement's at one-ment. When we take the mind connected with the heart, we're at one-ment. Then we connect with the earth, the trees, the plants, and everything else that our ancestry connected with at the time. What we experience today is separation, because we're not at that level of really ascending. To get to those higher levels, we have to get out of oneself, get out of ourselves, get out of the ego, get out of the pride, get into the humility, get to a place where we could be taught. And once we could be taught is when we really begin to ascend. So this time of ascendance is walk on for me. It really is. I had the privilege to go to Bennydale and build a nipi, a sweat lodge. Timaringa. It's probably one of the first times anything's been built like that out there. And it's just to summons and call in the four grandfathers and the four winds, and to go through the process of uniting the people. Because I think that without that unity, a house that's divided won't stand. So we have to come together as a people and begin to build on a solid foundation. And that's why I'm here in New Zealand. Creator spirits brought me here. We're going to be doing a lot of work, a lot of mahi with the whānau, and a lot of prayer. And I just want to thank you for letting me suck up half an hour of your time, Bilamaya and Takoya.